as a lot of people, I went to film school. I went to Columbia University Film School. The day I graduated, I moved to California, which is where they make movies, from New York City. Didn't know anybody. Found an apartment, bought a car, like, a $900 car, and immediately got a job. So I would tend bar until like 3 o'clock in the morning, get up at noon, and write until I had to go back to work. Just got extremely lucky. I was 23 years old, and the first movie that I had a writing partner at that time, and the first movie we wrote was Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox, a little comedy that went on to be this big thing that's still out there. And then the next movie was a movie that we wrote and they made with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Commando. And when you have two movies that came out in 1985, when they both come out and they're both hits, for some reason they keep giving you work. And so we were just really lucky and spent the next decade kind of writing movies, and I can't tell you why the ones that got made, and why the ones that didn't get made. That's just the movie business. But had a lot of fun, and during that time was working on a movie for, of all things, The Flash, the fastest man alive. They had hoped to get Michael J. Fox because they knew that we knew Michael from Teen Wolf. I don't know if Michael ever knew that we were developing this. That's just what Warner Brothers was telling us. And like most movies, they don't happen. So the movie didn't happen, and I got a phone call from the publisher, Jeanette Kahn at DC, and she said, if you're not going to write a movie for us, will you write a comic book? Which for me was sort of the equivalent of like Santa pulling up at the house in July and going, I missed your Christmas, but I have an American Express card and let's go to Toys R Us and buy whatever we want. So the idea of doing a comic book was much more exciting than writing movies. But there was only one problem. I had no idea how to write a comic book. And so I wrote an outline for an 8-issue, The Challengers of the Unknown, which I barely knew who those guys were. And then I had to find an artist and went to San Diego Comic-Con and met as many artists as I could. And everyone laughed me out of the room. It was just like, who are you? What are you? You've never written a comic and you're doing Challengers of the Unknown, which hadn't been published since 1978. This is now 1989. And then on the last day of the con, Barbara came up and she was super excited. She had this graphic novel in her hands called Thieves' World, and it was by this unknown artist named Tim Sale. And I always like to say to people, why did you pick Tim Sale? And I said, well, he was the only guy that said yes. And we just hit it off. And it started a friendship and a partnership that lasted about 30 years. And obviously Long Halloween and Dark Victory and the color books, Spider-Man Blue and Daredevil Yellow and Hulk Gray and Cap White and Wolverine Gambit. We just had a great time. And I was lucky enough the last thing he did was the Long Halloween special that came out last year. And then, a few months ago, we lost it. And I lost a really dear friend and good partner. While I was writing movies, I was also writing comics, which I didn't think I was ever going to do. And the next thing I knew, I didn't want to write movies anymore, and I was really interested in television. So I, through a series of just ridiculous things, got an interview on Buffy, and I went on Buffy in season 5, and worked on the animated series with Joss, and they had just the murderer's row of great genre writers, from Drew Goddard to Jane Espenson to Drew Greenberg, Stephen Knight, a lot of people who I would then work with later on, which was the greatest gift of all. I left that, went to Smallville in the very beginning, stayed for 3 seasons, and learned a lot from Al Gough and Miles Miller, who were awesome. Great cast. Still see the cast at Comic-Cons, so that's awesome. Then I went on The Lost. I met Damon Lindelof, who I think is the most talented guy out there. And I met a lot of super talented guys. Damon just has a gift that's unbelievable. And then I went on to Heroes, and it started great, and I left when it wasn't great, and I'm with all the fans. Yes, I get it. We hit an iceberg. Nobody intended to, but that's what happened. But an amazing cast and really talented writers, and again, people that I still have in my life, which means a lot. And a lot of memories that were a lot of fun. And then I really sort of thought, this is now 10 years ago, almost 11, and I thought, I'm just going to go make movies and television for myself. And right when I made that decision, I got a phone call from Marvel. They had been bought by Disney, and they wanted to know whether or not I would run the television division. And I was like, do you guys have a television division? They were like, no, we want you to make it up. And so I just dove in. By the time we were done, we had 120 people that worked there. Some of the most talented people that I was ever lucky enough to be with. And really made me look good. And we made 14 television series and another, half dozen animated series. We just had a blast, and I'm so proud. We did 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we did what was then called the Netflix shows, now they're on Disney+. Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Iron Fist and The Punisher and Defenders and Cloak and Dagger and Legion and Runaways. I mean, it was just getting to work with the best talented people who just loved what we were doing. There wasn't a single show that the people weren't trying to. Were they all home runs? Nobody has a perfect record, but we did really well. And I met a lot of people that I will always have in my life. And I think that's the most important part, is that, we set out to have fun, and we did. And fans seemed to like it. So when I go to comic conventions, I haven't been to comic conventions in almost 10 years, because when I used to go out with Marvel, I would go out with a show. So I was with the cast, or I was with showrunner, and it was very different than just being by yourself and being able to talk to the fans one-on-one. And I just started going back out again. I've been to Boston, I've been to New York, and Australia is the first out of the country one that I'm doing, and it's just super exciting, because I know that there'll be people that want to talk to me about movies, and there'll be people that want to talk to me about television, and there'll be people that want to talk about comics. And I've never been to Brisbane or Adelaide. I hope I'm pronouncing those right, and if not, please correct me. I really look forward to spending time with Arthur and Joyce. They're just dear friends, and so being able to be with them. There's this magical moment that can only happen at a convention, and that is, people come up and they tell me that this is the first Batman story that they've ever read, or they weren't reading Batman and then they came back because that's what we were doing, or the Superman story is something that I've read to my son. And those kinds of moments, when people share their emotional reaction to my writing and to the artists, it's the best thing. It's just exciting. It really is. It's probably more exciting for me than it is for them.
Join Jeph Loeb and many other superstars at Supanova, Brisbane 5th and 6th and Adelaide 12th and 13th this November.